Good afternoon and welcome to another session of Down to Earth Project Management. Today we're going to be talking about terminology and practices. So first up, let's talk about some terms that you will come across in project management. First up is stakeholder. What is a stakeholder? It is anyone that can impact or is impacted by your project. So that could be any number of people. It could be people that you are working with to develop a product, or it could be the people who are actually using it. For example, using the software realm, we are talking about the end users who are using it, as well as the internal company users that are using it, assuming you're building a software package that will be used outside of your own company. So if you send it out to someone, they're a stakeholder. If they buy it off the shelf, they are a stakeholder. Even if they never meet you or have no idea who you are, they are a stakeholder because they are impacted by your project. Next up, what is a critical path? Well, this is an important one for those who are planning on taking the PMP exam and then just need to know it in general. So it is a path line of your project, highlighting all the critical items that need to get accomplished and doing it so that it is the longest path. So if there are multiple items, you may need to make sure which are the longest ones that are required and make sure that they occur in the correct order and that you come to the correct time allotment for that. It's also useful in determining on what items in a project you need to start early, what projects you can run concurrently, so that you can minimize the length of your project as much as possible. It is a key planning practice, so bear that in mind. What is a Kappa? If you work in the regulatory field, you will know or get to know all about Kappa, otherwise known as corrective and preventative action. That is when you have an established procedure and something didn't go according to that procedure. All right, you have to document the whys and what happened and what are you going to do to correct it and make sure it doesn't happen again. It is a pretty big deal, and especially if you have to get legal involved, or if you have to incorporate any regulatory body. These are big deals, so that is why we are focused on developing procedures, getting them fully vetted by everyone, and following them to the letter, because with a Kappa, regulatory agencies can shut down your business. So bear that in mind always. Another thing to keep in mind is Sdlc. What is it? Well, this really applies to the software realm. It is the software development life cycle. It talks about where you're going into the development, where you're coming into actually designing the requirements with the stakeholders, figuring out what they want, coming up with the requirements from a technical perspective. For example, do you need to create additional databases? Do you have to get a DBA? What kind of user interface are you going to have? Is it going to be mobile compatible or is it going to be strictly desktop? All of that. And then you go into the actual development, and then you go into alpha, beta, and UAT testing. So for those not familiar with, alpha testing is where you're testing it yourself as a developer. Beta is where a developer passes it on to a different developer and say, hey, you try to break this, and also make sure that it works according to design. And then UAT is where you hand it off to the users to try it out and make sure that it is meeting their needs. and also see if they can break it. Because if your software breaks with a hard stop, that's not good. It means it needs to go back to the drawing board. And after that, you will also find out quality assurance testing. That's where professional testers will go and check your code to make sure it works according to plan. Then you have to look into the release cycle. How is your code being moved from a development region into the actual production region, as well as the QA, UAT regions, etc., and so forth. And also, after you go live, how are you going to support it? Is the development team going to support it for an X number of weeks, or is it going straight to your product support team? So all of that has to be thought about in Sdlc. It is a key factor in ITIL. So if you are considering ITIL certification, bear that in mind. So there are also a couple other terms that if you are a project manager that you should know about. If you're going for the PMP exam, you don't need to know the exact formula to get there. You do need to take understanding of these concepts with you into the exam, though. For example, net present value. It's to determine what value is the project, and it's used to help determine whether the project is worthwhile, or when you're comparing projects, which is worthwhile and which are not, or which one is to be funded first and which is to be funded second, and so forth. Also, payback period. How long does it take to recoup the loss of or cost of the expense? So that's just some of the terms you'll need to know in your project management experience. Again, realizing that my sphere is mainly software development, so it does kind of be flavored that way when it comes to these terms. Some practices that you will need to either develop or highly accentuate when you are a project manager. And the first thing is document everything. Every meeting, every discussion, every action item. Because we as project managers thrive on being able to pull up what has happened and what has been discussed before to plan future actions. And with that said, make sure you publish the minutes of every meeting that you go to. So you will learn to take shorthand, or at least a form of it, or become very good at typing in this day and age, so that you can then send out the meeting minutes and also learn how to distill the meeting minutes from verbatim or notes to just the highlights and action items that you're going to send out to the action item owners, so that everyone can agree on what was discussed, what are the action items, and what people are agreeing to do and when they will do it. And with that said, follow up on those times and dates that people agree to complete tasks by, those action items. If they take longer, then you need to have an understanding of why it happened and when it will get done. And is there anything you can do to help remove any blockers? That is something that is preventing them from completing their action item. So keep that in mind. Also, if you have your own action item, make sure you get that done on time, and also announce it to all the stakeholders that you have completed that. Do not let it go unannounced, because people will then begin questioning, did you do that task? Is it still undone? So don't leave people hanging. Tell them you got it done. And always notify stakeholders of the current progress. So if your project is on target, let them know. Even And make sure you report appropriately. So if you're reporting to the C-suite, they probably only want a traffic light. They want to know if it's red, yellow, or green. Make sure you report appropriately along with highlights. If you're having to report to all your stakeholders, make sure you include all the necessary details that they want. If you're reporting to a whole suite of people in one massive reporting scheme, go with more detail. Kind of give a quick summary at the top, go into more details later on, and then people can extract from your report what they want. Okay, this has been a quick introduction into some terms and practices you'll encounter as you progress through your project management career. As always, I hope this video has been of value, and if it has, please like and subscribe to this video as we will produce some more to help you understand what goes on in the day of a project manager. Thank you, and have a great day.